Hey guys, welcome back. As always, my name is Leyzar, and today we have a fantastic pairing, the Akvasto Prime versus the Aklex Prime. Mastery rank 12 versus Mastery rank 15, two very strong secondary weapons, and today we're going to be checking out exactly what are the pluses and the minuses between these two fantastic weapons. Now that said, I would recommend you guys build both, give both of them a try, but there is a clear difference between the two, so let's start off with the Aklex Prime and Mastery rank 15. I believe it's the only weapon to actually ask for Mastery rank 15. Now using this weapon is like dual wielding Desert Eagles for the most part. It's super impactful. Check out the sound. Sounds like the roaring thunder, doesn't it? It's fantastic, and you know what? It's got the damage to back up that sound. 150 damage per bullet, and you know what? That's not high just for a secondary weapon, but for basically any weapon in Warframe. The downside would be the 3-second long recoil and the obnoxious recoil on this one. Now some players have opted to slap on a whole lot of fire rate on the weapon and claim that it stabilizes the weapon. In my own testing with the Aklex Prime, which was fairly extensive, I found that to be nothing more than wishful thinking, so there you go. Unless of course you're like 5 or 10 meters away from your target. That's about it for the Aklex Prime. Let's have a quick look at the Akvasto Prime as well. Now both of the weapons of course are semi-automatic weapons, so you're gonna have to go shot by shot action. Now this one, when it was released, it had a pretty ugly recoil as well, but they quickly nerfed it down to something a whole lot more usable. Now that is definitely a different experience, but you don't get the same oomph either. This one only deals 65 damage per bullet. But again, you can control it at full fire rate. Now, for a stat comparison between the two. First off, the accuracy is a bit in favor of the Akvasto Prime. It doesn't really matter because none of these weapons are actually viable for something like Magnum Force. If you go for Magnum Force and multi-shot, which you should really go for multi-shot, most of your multi-shot bullets will be landing completely off the crosshairs, so I don't really recommend it. Critical chance in favor of the Aklex Prime at 25% versus 22%, but the Akvasto Prime has superior critical multiplier at 2.4x versus 2.0x. Better fire rate as well, but a smaller magazine, 16 for the Aklex and only 12 for the Akvasto Prime. The reload speed, 1.4 seconds, which is more than reasonable for the Akvasto Prime, but super high, 3 seconds for the Aklex Prime. Status chance also better on the Aklex, 25% versus 22%. And again, the damage is 65 on the Akvasto Prime versus 150 on the Aklex Prime. But take a look at the layout for a second. The Aklex Prime is heavily into puncture damage, and puncture damage will be dealing extra damage to heavily armored targets, which is fantastic. Then again, the Akvasto Prime is heavily into slash damage, which will open up some build diversity on the weapon. So let's test out some builds and see how they perform. And we're gonna start off with a straight elemental setup, nothing special here. We're looking at Hornet Strike for damage, critical chance, critical damage with Prime, Pistol Gambit and Target Cracker. If you don't have the primes, you can simply use the normal, but for a versus vid, I feel that it's important to give the weapon every opportunity to show how strong it is. And don't worry, we're gonna talk about Riven disposition just a tad later. We got multi-shot and fire rate with Barrel Diffusion Lethal Torrent, 2 60-60 mods, Jolt and Pistol Pestilence, and 1 90 mod for pumping up the corrosive value. Now in my test, I'm gonna be shooting corrupted heavy gunners, and against them this is the way to go for corrosive. But if you're going up against something like Corpus, then you can go gas, you can get toxin, or you can even go something like slash if the weapon permits, and the Akvasto definitely does do that. Now normally I pump up the corrosive value simply because I want to get higher than IPS times 4, keeping in mind the IPS rules in Warframe. Now it's true, it's not higher than slash, since that one as a proc priority value right now is sitting roughly around 1600, but at least with convulsion on, it's within striking distance. So let's test out the weapon and see how it performs. But first, make sure we're not cheating with anything. Steel Charge, Power Drift, yes we're good, and no Arcanes. Not amount, yeah, that should be fine. We're gonna be spawning in Corrupted Heavy Goons, level 120, since usually this is the benchmark, more or less. Now let's see what the weapon can do. We're gonna go shot by shot initially, then I'm gonna open up to full fire rate. Then I'm gonna take, is this reasonable enough? Something like 10 meters from the target, guys? Something like this? Normally in missions, that's totally variable, but there you go. I was able to kill a target within a single clip, but going by shot action and going strictly for headshots. And let's be honest for a second, It's not really gonna go down that way in a normal mission, is it, right? If you see a shot and it's a body shot, I doubt you're gonna stop and re-aim for the head. Even though, when it comes to critical weapons, such as these, you should definitely stop and try to get that headshot. Don't know why? Link in the cards right now for a full explanation on critical chance and critical multipliers and how do they apply in Warframe. Trust me, it's a bit more convoluted than it would seem. And that's about it for shot-by-shot action. Now let's go full rapid fire. I'm still gonna maintain roughly 10 meters till the target and I'm gonna open up. Definitely not an easy thing to control, but wait for the Aklex Prime. If you go for an approach such as this, of course you're gonna be taking up 2 or even 3 magazines to actually kill off a target. The difference between body shots and headshots. Try to control it as best you can. Now, maybe you guys have an easier time on controller, but for the life of me, I was never able to actually aim decently well with a controller. But that's pretty much it for the Akvasto Prime. Let's move over to the big papa, the Aklex Prime. Honestly, I always love how this weapon feels and sounds, but the problem with it is the usability. The question is, can you get over those usability issues or not? And essentially, we have the same exact build. Of course, we're gonna be having a higher critical chance, but a lower critical multiplier. When it comes to the IPS rules, no chance of me actually catching up to Puncture since it's over 4000 as a proc priority value, but we're gonna go for it like this. Don't worry, the weapon packs one serious punch. It's got Mastery rank 15 on it. So the damage isn't the issue is usability. Once again, 15-10, there we go, shot by shot action. I love the sound, man, that roaring thunder, it's just amazing. It's one of the reasons I love the Vake or Heck or the Heck as well. It doesn't really matter a whole lot when it comes to the immersion. If a weapon sounds impactful, you might be tempted to believe it's more impactful than it actually is. And this is what kind of damage you can expect from this glorious weapon. Of course, it can take out a heavily armored target within a full magazine, as long as you can go for straight headshots, which again may prove problematic. Then again, we got crowd control frames, right? So we can definitely opt for something like that. Now, if I go rapid fire, though, the story changes a little bit. It's difficult for me to control it, but not completely impossible. Again, I think 10 meters is more than justified. And take a look at the power. It simply chomps away at enemies. You gotta love that huge damage on the Aklex Prime. And if this is a bit too much for you, you can go for the Lex Prime again. But I think that the axe sets have something special. I don't know, it's something really cool about dual wielding pistols. Always has been. I guess it always will be. There you go. I think that is pretty much enough. You guys can judge for yourself, because basically it's a question of comfort versus power. It's gonna come down to what kind of player you are. If you think you're sturdy enough, skilled enough, or don't mind the usability, then definitely I would go for the Aklex Prime. But honestly, at times it becomes a bit more annoying in actual missions, the whole recoil and all whatnot. Now, one advantage to the Akvasto Prime is the fact that it does have some build diversity. We can leverage that high amount of slash on the weapon and try to make it into a slasher. So we're gonna go with Vital Elemental Combo through the 60/60 mods. Our proc priority value is #1 on slash. And as the last mod, you do have a couple of options. You can increase the status chance to get more slash. You can go for more critical chance like I have gone with Hydraulic Crosshairs, or you can go for a usability mod, something like reducing the recoil, for example. You can even go for something like increased fire rate, but considering the magazine of 12, I would keep it as is. Now let's try a slash build on this one. Honestly, I was super happy to hear that they nerfed the recoil on it, because without it, it was basically a no-show between the two weapons. Once again, a full magazine, and this guy, take a look. Different story, isn't it? Definitely a different story right now. Now, we don't have something like hunter munitions for secondary weapons, and God willing, we never will. So you can't really make use of slash on the Aklex Prime since the slash value is super small, something like 15 by default. But as you can see, you can go for an approach such as this. When it comes to the Akvasto Prime, I'm actually tempted to suggest it over a standard elemental setup, simply because slash and vital is a whole lot more applicable no matter the situation. It will be fine versus corpus unit, it will be fine versus Grenier units, and you know what, versus infested as well. Sure, it's not gonna be the best choice in every single mission, but it's gonna do the job just fine. So you do have an option such as this. Now, there's still one more thing that we need to talk about and discuss, and that is Riven disposition between these two weapons. When it comes to the Aklex Prime, you're looking at 0.8, and that will translate to Riven disposition of 2 out of 5. not gonna get all that powerful Rivens, sadly. If you're going for a Riven on the Aklex Prime, of course, go for critical chance up to 100%, taking into account the Prime mod as well, critical damage, multi-shot with a harmless negative. But if you get something like negative recoil on the Riven, that would definitely not be a bad thing. The Riven disposition on the Akvasto Prime is 1.2, which will translate into 4 out of 5, so needless to say, you're gonna get a lot more powerful Rivens for the Akvasto Prime. So that kind of tips the scales once again. And again, the same priority when it comes to Riven mods. Go for critical chance up to 100%, then try to focus on critical damage, multi-shot with a harmless negative. This one with the recoil doesn't really matter all that much, since at least from my humble point of view, which I'm not MLG or anything like that, it's definitely usable. So who won? Which is the better weapon? And that is a bit of a complicated answer. First off, when it comes to raw power, raw damage, there's simply no beating the Aklex Prime. That thing is a bloody monster. But that monster comes with some serious usability issues. I'm talking about the recoil and the reload. And of course, power without control isn't much of anything. Then again, you can take the high ground and say something like, I can mod for usability, I can mod for recoil, and I can mod for reload speed. But in modding for usability, you are making a compromise. You are giving up on something else. It's definitely not the same thing as having that built-in usability, which the Akvasto does have. It's a bit more flexible as well, you have a couple of more build options for it, but it doesn't have the same oomph as the Aklex Prime. But you also get a higher Riven disposition. So at the end of the day, it boils down to this. If you believe you can overcome the shortcomings of the Aklex Prime, definitely go for it. From my subjective point of view, it's the more immersive experience, if you will. But if you want something more reliable, a bit more flexible, and with higher Riven disposition that will get the job done each and every time, you go for the Akvasto Prime. As always, my name is Lazar. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like, favorite, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed the content. If you got any sorts of feedback for me, I would love to read it in the comment section down below. Also in the comment section down below if you want to suggest a particular weapon review or versus. Now, in all honesty, I can't exactly promise you that it will be done by next time or even within a week, but I can promise you that I will be reading through each and every comment. And if you love the content, consider supporting us via Patreon. You can also find me on Twitch, Facebook, Twitter, all the usual places. Until next time, my friends. Bye-bye.